Hey, I'm Jack Pintens, a senior at El Segundo High School. Today, we will be talking about a topic that has been shaking up the world of college athletics recently, NIL. So what is NIL? NIL stands for Name, Image, and Likeness. It addresses college athletes and the money generated from the use of their own name, image, and likeness. In the past, there were NCAA rules prohibiting college athletes from receiving money from their NIL because it violated amateur rules. For example, colleges themselves could enter into sponsorship and endorsement deals that featured student athletes, but the athletes in these deals were not allowed to directly benefit. This meant athletes were bringing in all the money for schools, but receiving none of it. However, on June 30th, 2021, the NCAA passed a new policy which opened the floodgates for an entire new world of college athletics. In words taken directly from the NCAA website, quote, individuals can engage in NIL activities that are consistent with the law of the state where the school is located. Individuals can use a professional service provider for NIL activities. NIL started with athletes promoting brands on social media in exchange for money. More opportunities began to arrive in forms such as autograph signings and sports camps. Athletes were getting their well-deserved money. So what's the problem with NIL? It sounds like a great opportunity for athletes to make well-deserved money. Well, the main problem with NIL is that there is no regulation. Payments are not regulated. And more importantly, collectives are not regulated. NIL collectives are organizations owned by prominent alumni and donors. The money they raise is used to give to the student athletes. Almost every Power 5 school has a collective. In simple terms, these collectives are large bank accounts for college athletic teams. The NCAA cannot control who is getting paid and how much. One result of this is athlete exploitation. To give you an idea of how much some of these athletes are paid, here's a quote from Nebraska football coach Matt Rule. Quote, a good quarterback costs somewhere between $1 million and $2 million in the portal, end quote. Think about that for a second. To be competitive in the current college football landscape, you need millions of dollars for just one player. These large amounts of money are going to teenagers and young adults who can easily be taken advantage of. For example, one problem that might arise is the lack of following through with payments. To better understand the situation, let's read a quote from Will Backus, a writer for 247 Sports, which is a respected recruitment information service. He says, quote, me personally, if you promised me $50,000, $100,000, and then you didn't pay on it, I wouldn't play until you resolve the issue. I would hold out like they do in the pros because you're using this money to entice it. There were kids who passed up on football situations and academic situations that were better than them because they were promised money that they have not received, end quote. To sum up the problem, collegiate athletes are being taken advantage of due to the lack of regulation on NIL policies. The NCAA has not created universal safeguards for athletes across the country. To better understand NIL and the current landscape of college athletics, I interviewed Loyola Marymount University's athletic director, Craig Pintens. So, first question. Are there safeguards in place to protect student athletes from being taken advantage in NIL deals?
There probably aren't enough safeguards at this point. I would say that the safeguards are the responsibility of the school, because per the rules we're allowed to educate student athletes, and recently they made a change where we're allowed to review contracts as well. However, that doesn't prevent a lot of bad actors out there who are trying to take advantage of student athlete in NIL deals. I mean, really, there needs to be some type of federal legislation that can put those safeguards in place so that we can protect student athletes.
Are there concerns that NIL opportunities could influence recruitment decisions, favoring schools or programs with more lucrative endorsement opportunities?
Yeah, that's already happening. That's real life. I heard a stat the other day that there are over 2,000 men's basketball players in the transfer portal right now, and that's a big number. And a lot of student athletes, because they have an opportunity to make some money from a collective, they're taking advantage of that, and that's a great thing. However, the schools that have the advantages prior to NIL probably still have those type of advantages because they have people that are funding their programs and are better resourced than other schools. So that hasn't really affected it too much, but it certainly is a factor in decisions that people are making.
So last question, what are the potential negative long-term impacts of NIL for college athletics?
Well, I think the negative impacts are things that need to be changed right now. I'm all for student athletes being able to certainly benefit off their name, image, and likeness. And I think when this was enacted, that was truly what it was supposed to be, was really profiting off your name, image, and likeness. So, for example, if you, Jack Pintens, were a college basketball player and Tower Pizza wanted to give you a couple $100 a month to put out a couple social media posts and give you as much pizza as you could eat, that's something that traditional NIL would do. What it's really become is the collectives, whereby somebody gives money to a third party, that third party then gives money to a student athlete. That has really become a bigger part of this, and because it's so unregulated, that's the only issue with this. And so it's a complicated issue. It's something that is changing constantly, and again, I support student athletes being able to capitalize on it, but to your first question, there needs to be some guardrails.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Taken from a Division I athletic director, the NCAA needs to regulate the NIL process. So how do we regulate the NIL process? Here are 3 possibilities. Number 1, limiting the third-party involvement. This would regulate agents and marketing firms who arrange deals for athletes and have the potential to exploit them. Number 2, disclosure requirements. The NCAA could require athletes to disclose their NIL deals to their schools or the NCAA itself to ensure compliance with regulations. Number 3, commercial opportunities. The NCAA could limit what types of opportunities are available with NIL for college athletes. They could restrict endorsements that can conflict with amateur values. To sum up, even though college athletes now have more opportunities with name, image, and likeness rights, it is important to recognize the problems and difficulties that come with it. By addressing these concerns thoughtfully, we can strive towards a more equitable and sustainable future for NIL and collegiate sports. Thank you for listening.